Good job, Kay. Now, I'm curious about the vacation experience that you're talking about every year. Is that when you got the feedback this year that a certain percentage of family members were at least saying, as of that moment in time, they weren't sure they were interested in maintaining that tradition? Where does that leave the three of you in your thinking about? Because the original purpose of that was to create an experience you mentioned, and to be a glue in the family. And that's back to that value, Maureen, of time, quality time spent together. So what is your thinking about that now?
We're pretty open-minded. You can't force people to do what you would like them to do, including your kids. But I would bet the kids of our kids would like the experience. So, maybe some of the adults wouldn't want to do it, but I don't know, it just needs to be talked about, and we're open to change, and they all know what we value, and you give your kids everything you can while you have them, and then they live their lives. So we had a friend who has a cottage, and they were gonna sell it when they die, and their children said, no, you can't do that. And so they had a meeting with their kids, and 3 of the 4 loved the cottage. The 4th one wants no part of it, likes to visit once in a while, but doesn't want to own it. So they worked out a plan that that child will get a lump sum, and the others will get the cottage. So you can always work around things, and we'll just do something like that.
Well, I love what your disposition is, Maureen, that you're saying we're just open to having the conversation with our kids. We don't have to dictate something. We just need to have it be kind of an organic process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marty or Michael, what would you add to that?
Back earlier, I talked about the fact that there are provisions in the trust that are the will rather that are there for good positive protection, but they're complex, and you got to have it explained to you several times why it makes sense for you to receive your inheritance in a trust instead of just outright. And especially when they read the part that says, and you are the trustee of your trust, and you are free to take the money out of the trust. So, well, why put it in the trust to start out with? I'm just going to take it out. Okay, let's have a conversation about why you might want to leave it in the trust. Here's why people create trusts and leave things in trust for the benefit of their kids.
Nice.
So having multiple conversations about this with them is probably going to be pretty important.
It's refreshing to me, Marty, that you've emphasized that a couple times now, multiple conversations, because this is complicated technically, and it's also complicated emotionally for people. So both of you have this willingness to keep going back and refreshing the conversation and having, as you said, Maureen, an open conversation about the trust and how they work and your wishes and what's important to you. So I applaud you for that. Michael, I am curious about your thoughts about it's a 2-part question. Were you kind of surprised when you were all gathered and you heard some of your family saying, I'm not so sure we want to continue this tradition? And what are your thoughts about what can be done about that?
Sure. I wasn't surprised. And that's why we started the family meeting and started talking about these things, why I was pushing for it. You know, 10 years of working with the Purposeful Planning Institute and listening and learning. You know, I didn't get my bachelor's in psychology, but I bet you it's pretty close to an equivalent with all the time and the learning that we've spent there. And you could just tell that one of the things, in my opinion, that we missed is, as we're bringing in spouses, they're coming from other families and they're coming from other values. And then, you know, I went through a divorce, and there was almost 2 other divorces in the family that didn't happen. And so there, you know, there was some, you know, there was, this is just family, you know, this is just normal family stuff.
Yep.
And you just knew that, you know, as Jay says, families of affinity win. And my parents have always believed in affinity over blood. But at the same time, it's doing the exercises and finding a way to bring a voice to the outside family members, and, you know, the married in spouses, to ensure that we were doing that. Because again, it was Palumbos family vacation, not, you know, each name of each, you know, the family name of each spouse. And it was always the Palumbos traditions. Well, what about some of the other traditions? And I believe that we do a really, really good job of that. My wife is Jewish. We're a Catholic family. And we celebrate Shabbat dinner, you know, during PFV, you know, on Fridays. And so we were very inclusive, but there's emotions and thoughts and feelings that we might not always gather. And so this was an opening for us to say, in my opinion, while mom and dad are here, while there's a chance to open up this dialogue at a bigger level, and that's the fact that they're saying, you know, we need to have some one-on-ones. It's figuring out what are those conversations, how do you have those conversations so that everybody feels included, everybody feels part of the decision, and that we can either decide not to do it together or decide to do it together. And how do we do that?